NFL Black Monday 2014 going into 2015 has yielded coaching vacancies for the Chicago Bears, who fired Marc Tresman on the extreme left, the Atlanta Falcons, who fired Mike Smith next to Tresman, Rex Ryan, fired by the New York Jets in the middle, Jim Harbaugh, who parted company with the San Francisco 49ers on the right, and Tony Sporano, the interim head coach of the Oakland Raiders, who said today this is his team, but the Raiders clearly want to move in another direction. That begs the question, who should fill these coaching vacancies? Well, there are a number of names, but I am going to throw out some that I think will be very good for NFL teams to consider. First of all, there's Bengals offensive coordinator Hugh Jackson. Jackson was the head coach of the Oakland Raiders, and in the only year that he was the head of the team, he finished 8-8. He was but one loss away from getting the Raiders into the playoffs. They lost to the Chargers. Injuries and deficiencies in defensive scheme did them in. But what really did Hugh in was a press conference where he basically said something not too far away from what Sporano said today. He basically said that he wanted more power and that for all practical purposes the Raiders were his team. Well, for some particular reason, Mark Davis and then new GM Reggie McKenzie didn't like that, and they let him go. Something about the water in the Bay Area that causes such rifts between owners and coaches, but the bottom line is that's what happened. Jackson, now the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals, has worked wonders with their young quarterback Andy Dalton, and they head into the playoffs where they could go to the AFC Championship and perhaps to the Super Bowl. They played that well. The other coaching candidate that I think should be considered is Texas A&M's Kevin Sumlin. He is one of the fathers of the modern air raid offense. He was the architect of the system that put a Heisman Trophy into Johnny Manziel's lap, and he has guided the Texas A&M football program to new levels of respectability. And also, there's Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals, whose aggressive yet controlled schemes have worked wonders at stopping the opponent's running games and putting the clamps on many passing games. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Cardinals as we move into the 2015 NFL playoff season. So those are the names, and I'll have more names to present to you in another video. But I also want to say this, that at a time when we've had protests or police shootings of young black males, it's time that the National Football League stop the pattern of thinking that someone is a better candidate just because they're white, as opposed and then thinking that they're a better player just because they're black. That idea is really driven by emotion. What happens is that we tend to think that someone is really good at what they do, and then we build what we think is an intellectual case to back what is really an emotional decision. The point that I'm making is that if you really want to take race out of the equation, you've got to really blindly, in a sense, evaluate what coaches do and make that selection based on a numerical test. But also, we have to begin to say, who are we not paying attention to, and be honest with the reason we come up with. If you say someone is better because someone else said they're better, then you're marrying yourself to that person's prejudices. You've got to stop that. And also, some of you will get upset that I'm mentioning race. I'm going to tell you something. If you don't want me to talk about race, why don't you help stop racism? Stay tuned.